We're learning more about how much money each presidential campaign is raising in the 2024 race and who is lagging behind in fundraising. President Biden's campaign says he raised $72 million with his joint fundraising committee and the DNC. Former President Trump's campaign and his PAC took in over $35 million from April to June. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he brought in the second most in the GOP field with just over $20 million in the 6 weeks since launching his campaign in late May. For more on all this, Caitlin Huey-Burns, Finn Gómez join us now. Caitlin is a CBS News political correspondent. Finn is a CBS News political director, and Ed O'Keefe is also joining us from the campaign trail. Ed, we're glad we got that connection up. We'll begin with you, Ed, in case it goes out again. Ed, what's your read on DeSantis and how he's trying to come back in South Carolina?
Well, it's not even so much come back at this point, Bob. It's introduced himself. This is one of his first events here in northern South Carolina. We're essentially in greater Charlotte, here in Tegakay, South Carolina. Talked to a lot of people here who are saying things to us about why they want to see him for the first time, the way Iowa voters may have been saying it 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, when he was sort of just getting started in that state. He's going to be the first Republican contender to officially file for the South Carolina primary tomorrow and make another stop or two down there, talk about military policy and some other ideas he has on national security as he continues to lay out a campaign that he argues is nowhere near done and that will have the resources to compete through the early contests next year. Guy we talked to in line who was waiting for a little while to get in here said, look, this is way too early, and I think the guy has proper perspective. It is early, plenty of time to go. It's a race between Trump and DeSantis in the view of this one supporter and in the view of the DeSantis operation, and the rest of them are just applying for cabinet positions. So whether or not that remains the case, we'll see. The issue in the fundraising, as I know you'll discuss with Finn and Caitlin too, is not so much what he raised, but how he's spending what he raised, and whether what we call his burn rate, or the amount he has spent so far, is too much at a time when he may not be able to bring in those kind of smaller dollar donations that campaigns need to fuel them, the $35 donations or the $5 you might get from somebody who saw something on the news or on Facebook. If you can't grow that base, it becomes harder to continue funding these operations in the long haul when all your wealthy friends have maxed out and can't give you any more. So that's a challenge he faces. It's part of why he had to lay off about 10 people over the weekend who are expected to get picked up by the super PAC. And we'll see how he does here in South Carolina in the coming days.
Because Governor DeSantis has been struggling, other candidates in the Republican race have seen an opening. One of them is Vivek Ramaswamy, a businessman entrepreneur. Caitlin Huey-Burns spoke with him in recent days. Let's take a listen.
Do you think that Iowa is a place that will produce the alternative to Donald Trump?
I don't think about it as Trump or another candidate. I think about the country, right? And so I think that Iowa is a place that an outsider can excel. Because people in this state have a very open mind. If this election were held in all 50 states at the same time, no chance a guy like me could win. And no chance a guy like...
So much of Ramaswamy's path is not necessarily through Trump, but through the path DeSantis was supposed to have for himself. But his struggle has given a lot of confidence, it seems, to him and others.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, Ramaswamy told us that he hopes to place in the top 3 in Iowa, top 2 in New Hampshire. That's kind of what he sees as his path. But he's right. I mean, New Hampshire or Iowa is a place where you can be an outsider. And if you just work the ground and introduce yourself to as many voters as possible, you can make some kind of difference there. It was really interesting talking to voters, not only at this big evangelical gathering, but also at a Ron DeSantis event. Ramaswamy's name came up over and over and over again among voters, just saying that they were interested in what he had to say. And I did get the impression after spending a few days reporting there that this is an open field in the minds of Iowa potential caucus goers. They still are very supportive of the former president in terms of his policies, but many of them I talked to said that they want to turn the page and look for someone new. And DeSantis is someone that they're interested in. Nikki Haley also is campaigning there. Tim Scott has also been making impressions there. But notably, I did not hear Mike Pence's name brought up once. In fact, talking to the evangelical voters at that big summit over the weekend, many of them pointed out to me that they were actually not interested in a Pence candidacy because of all the attacks that Trump has waged against him. And we're seeing that in his fundraising totals as well. And
so much of former Vice President Pence's campaign strategy is tethered to Iowa, trying to make inroads there. But it's not been an easy road for Pence. Let's take a listen to some of the response he got from the audience there in recent days.
And I believe that it is in the interest of the United States of America to continue to give the Ukrainian military the resources that they need to repel the Russian invasion and restore their sovereignty.
Well, that answer did not get a positive response from some in the crowd who don't share Pence's view on Ukraine. Could Pence's position on this key foreign policy issue cause him problems in Iowa, Finn?
Yes. In a word, yes. We saw it. I think this was a very bad weekend for Mike Pence. As Caitlin reported, not only were his numbers very bad, frankly, they were low, but you also saw him get eviscerated essentially by Tucker Carlson at that event. There has been there's been a somewhat of a downward trajectory following that in the aftermath of that. I know he's going to New Hampshire tomorrow. He's going to be there for the rest of the week. But for some, and I've spoken to some today, some people close to Pence who say that essentially that the writing could be on the wall. I mean, can he get to the debate stage? It does not seem that he has a clear, and in fact, he has a pretty arduous path to get there by these numbers and by this pace. And again, he basically hit a wall, essentially, with that question from Tucker Carlson. I think it would be very hard for him to pick up momentum. We got a long way. We're not in the prediction business, as you say all the time, Bob, but it does not look great for Mike Pence at this point.
Another issue in Iowa are the comments made by former President Donald Trump about the incumbent governor, Kim Reynolds, who's quite popular with Republicans there. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis spoke about this over the past week.
Governor, you spent a lot of time with Governor Reynolds. You defended her after President Trump's recent statements. Would you consider her as a potential vice presidential pick in this campaign?
Of course. I mean, she's one of the top public servants in America. You know, I thought the attacks on her were totally out of hand and totally unnecessary.
Ed, I know you are in South Carolina, but weigh in with your reporting on Iowa and DeSantis.
Look, he has a good relationship with the governor. She obviously has the potential to be a kingmaker, but traditionally the governor, if it's of the same party holding the caucus, doesn't weigh in advance, doesn't put their thumb on the scale. And so far, at least, it doesn't look like she's going to do that. But various news outlets have picked up on the fact that she has spent a lot of time alongside him, alongside his wife, who launched a Women for DeSantis organization there in Iowa. And they have both complimented each other in the policies that they've implemented over the last several years. Remember, she's head of the Republican Governors Association, so she's right now preternaturally inclined to support one of her fellow state executives. Right now, the one in best shape would be DeSantis, but again, not expected to weigh in. And to see the former president attacking a popular statewide figure like Governor Reynolds, it was an easy opening for everybody else to sort of say, well, I'm a fan of hers, I'll defend her. And in the case of Governor DeSantis responding to our Musaddiq Badar, saying, yeah, I would consider her for vice presidential material. But, you know, another subplot in the ongoing attempt by all these guys to differentiate themselves, and certainly when possible, put some distance between them and the former president.
Finn, quickly.
Yeah, DeSantis still, though, is behind Trump. Trump is still dominant in that state, as Caitlin has reported. He's up by like 24 points on the latest Real Clear Politics average. I mean, he is still the dominant figure right now, Bob.
Caitlin Huey-Burns, Finn Gómez, and Ed O'Keefe, we really appreciate your analysis and your report.